and welcome to our season review, where we will be dissecting our 6 most pivotal games in our treble winning season. Still gives me goosebumps to say that. To eulogise on our success, we have a perfect panel in the studio today. Of course, the legend himself, that is Mr. Paul Dickov.
How are we?
Well, lovely to see you again.
I thought you were going to say Big Steve and you said legend.
Yes, of course, we've got Super City fans as well, Emily, Brobyn and Big Steve. Thank you for joining us, both of you.
No problem.
And our club journalist, Sam, or I'm going to start calling you Sam Lucky Charm, as we realise that this is the end of your first season with the club. So
yeah, didn't choose a bad season to join the club. So
absolutely, Lucky Charm shall be your new nickname, Sam. Thank you so much for being here today. Cannot wait to go through these 6 games. So let's start off by giving you all some more goosebumps with a recap of what became an absolutely astonishing season.
So, the champions begin their defence at the London Stadium. Erling Haaland is off and running. That's top quality from Kevin De Bruyne. Stones hits it! Hits a shot into the net! Haaland! That is a stunning finish from Erling Haaland. Oh, and that's a terrible back pass, and City will score, and it's incredible. Erling Haaland keeps doing what Erling Haaland does. City have scored already. The ball into the box, and Ilkay Gundogan tucks it in. Oh, that's a great ball. Oh, it had to be. It had to be. Rodri! Treble winners, Manchester City. Can you believe it? What a night in Istanbul.
So where better to start than going back to October? You all immediately know the game, don't you? We invited our neighbours over for a good game of football. And it's safe to say that the 2 players that shared the spotlight that day, of course, lifelong Blues, Phil Foden and Erling Haaland. What a game they both had. Paul, when I said October, did you immediately know that it was the derby?
I did. It was my favourite game of the season by a country mile. For lots of reasons. To go out and 2 hat-tricks, score 6 goals. What a huge statement. It let us know where we were at the beginning of the season, but it also let them know where they were at as well.
What did it mean for you, Emily, to see lifelong Blue Phil Foden doing insane in this game?
It was everything, wasn't it? I mean, as well with Haaland getting his 3rd consecutive Premier League hat-trick as well, that broke the record there. But Phil Foden and Jack Grealish using the width there that day, both of them on the wings, and it was just like a dream scenario. But I agree with Paul. Before the game, we were a little bit worried because there was no Rodri, so Pep went with attack, and obviously it was an absolute battering. But what a dream scenario for lifelong fans, Foden and Haaland. It was unbelievable.
Yeah. Know what Emily said, but I remember the atmosphere before the game underneath the South Stand when the teams came out and there was no Rodri.
Oh, yeah.
And it's derby day anyway, so everyone's always nervous. And they were like, oh my God, they got that midfield in there, it's a bit aggressive and that. But like Paul said, we absolutely dominated the game, and we put a marker down that day to show them. Apparently, era's come to an end, but looking at that, it's not going to end soon. So yeah, it was great. Bragging rights, we're back in Manchester, and to see the 2 City fans get hat-tricks was unbelievable.
I remember being so nervous when the teams came out, because I'm one of those that gets freakishly nervous on derby days, like ridiculously, like it's not nice nervous,
What's derby days got to do with it? You're like that before every game, Natalie.
Do you know what though? Over the years in derby days, like even at Main Road, we got loads of injuries and we had to play Gerard Vikens and Lucien Matomo, and then we went out and won and stuff like that. So things like that, I just believe in fate. And that Etihad Stadium that day was top notch. We cranked it up, and as long as people keep, throwing fun at the Etihad Stadium, keep doing it, because all these top teams are coming there, and they're freezing under the lights and getting it for 6s and 7s. So it suits me.
Sam, was this your first ever Manchester derby?
it would have been, yeah. So again, I chose the perfect one to.
He's lucky.
To experience it for the first time. But I think from our point of view as a journalist, it was obviously amazing. So many goals, and you know, you can write for days about that. But I think the quality of each goal was sort of a byproduct of the Man City system. They weren't sort of fluky goals or a mistake has caused them. It was part of us going out and looking to attack. And I think, yeah, not a bad introduction to life. It was a bit of a mad one. Like Steve said, the atmosphere that day was incredible, and it's like a real, for me personally, not a wake up call, but like, wow, like we're here now, and this is hopefully on to good things, and it truly was.
Really was. You said it was your favourite game of the whole season, Paul. Did you feel after this game that something special was happening this season?
No, and a few people were. I know it was his third hat trick, but people were still questioning Erling for whatever reason. I think Jamie Carragher came out and said he picked the wrong team, and you know, all stupid things were coming out, and he's just scored back-to-back hat tricks going into it. And I think Erling got into that game because look, I think Martinez is a top player, but I think in his head he was thinking, I'm going to show him today what it's all about. The top players do it all the time. We see it in the big games to get a hat trick, and it was just sensational. And I was pleased for Phil as well, you know, to come through the academy, doing what he's doing, how good he is and everything else, and then to score a hat-trick in a derby, it's everybody's dream, never mind if it's your boyhood club as well.
Yeah, well, we know how much it meant to us, and we know that Erling Haaland said when he first joined, Steve, that the game he was most looking forward to was Manchester United, and that was obvious, wasn't it, from his performance?
Yeah, he's just got a real connection with the fans. Like, he says all the right things, but he proves it on the pitch. He's got a connection, like, some players, they play for the club and, you know, the fans take to him, but he's just instantly become an icon. You know, I've never seen so many kids walking around with Haaland shirts on all over the world.
Haaland hair?
Hairdos, yeah. Well, I can't do the hair, unfortunately, but I've got the shirt. But no, and listen, he's been sensational. And that day there, everybody had to stand up and take note that Manchester City had arrived this season, and Erling Haaland definitely had put a marker down.
Sam, so from a journalist kind of point of view, how do you tell the story of that game? Because obviously you've only got a limited amount of space and a limited amount of words and time, and so much happened in the game.
Yeah, I think luckily for us, when we're writing a report, we need to find obviously the story of the match. 2 hat tricks, one from Phil and Erling. That sort of lent itself to writing it. But like you say, sometimes, luckily not on this game, you'll have a report filed, and then something will change madly in the last moment. So luckily for us, this was kind of game setting match was kind of half time. So for us, we knew where the storyline was taking it. But yeah, that was probably one of the longest match reports we've had to file this season, that's for sure.
This is a ridiculous question, Emily. I know that it is, and some people are going to be annoyed at me for saying it, but were you disappointed at all in the goals that we conceded? Because they came towards the end of the game. We'd made a lot of changes. We'd obviously taken our foot off the gas a bit. Did you mind that?
I did a little bit. Obviously, I get the bigger picture with Pep. It's game management, isn't it? And that's what he does, and that's all part of it. But yeah, towards the end, I thought it flattered them. And then afterwards, some United fans were kind of, oh, well, you know, we got those 3 goals. And all right, well, you know, get your bus out and parade round about the 3 goals because you won the second half. Well done. And we kind of went in at half-time 4-0 up. And at that point, we were thinking at half-time, this could be 10. It should have been 10. But I do appreciate the bigger picture with Pep and game management, and that's important as well.
And it did mean we got to see other players come on and get a go on the pitch. And we saw the shot there of earlier of Sergio Gomez, Phil Foden and Erling Haaland all celebrating together, Paul. And we know that they're all childhood City fans. So that was a special moment for me.
It does. It makes it even better. But I'm with Emily a little bit. I was just a tinge of disappointment because I wanted it. At 6-1, I thought, yeah, just keep it.
6-1 in the 80th minute, I think. Yeah. So it was 10 minutes, and you're thinking, well, I'm thinking in my head, 6-1 again.
I'm thinking 7. No, I was thinking 7
what I'm
and
going
8.
to say on all the podcasts. I'm ready to go, me.
Yeah.
So 6-3 was a little bit, ooh, I know what you mean. But listen, I always say, to score 6, when they tried to come at me on various shows saying, yeah, but we scored 3. I was like, listen, you conceded 6.
Yeah.
In an era that we are disappointed that we conceded goals when we scored 6. It's a wonderful, wonderful time to be alive. Any other standout moments or memories from the game for you, Steve?
Just the atmosphere. I keep saying it. I just think this season the Etihad Stadium's gone up a level. I think finally it's clicked. I don't know what's happened. I think the 1894 groups helped a lot. I think the underneath the south stand now, I don't know if you've ever been under there.
Tell us about that in case anyone's not been in
well,
there.
For many years, it's just been a blank space. I think they used to put banners and flags there. We came this season and it was like, wow. it's unbelievable. There's screens and there's like a DJ booth and there's a shop and like a souvenir shop but the DJ gets the atmosphere going. So everyone's ramped up. So instead, a lot of people go away from the ground, they go into pubs and stuff to get the atmosphere, and you sort of lose that as you get to the stadium. I think what this is doing, it's getting everyone ramped up, and you're literally 60 seconds from your seat, so you still got that adrenaline, and it's carrying through. And I think the big games this season, the ones we're going to talk about, I think that's been so important, and I think the club's got it right. And you can see in these games, there's people like we said before, talk about the Etihad Stadium and all that, but this season I've been there every game and I can just feel it. It's different, and sometimes when the teams needed a lift, it's that South Stand has got them going. You know what I mean? So the club's done wonders with that this season.
You're in the South Stand as well, Emily.
Yes,
you feel it?
Absolutely. And I'm like, Steve, stop it, because everybody will be wanting to relocate to the South Stand.
The South Stand's the place to be, I tell you.
We've been there for years, and it's just brilliant. It generates the atmosphere, and I agree that bar now in there, it's an absolute game changer. It's a stroke of genius from City for doing that, because it gets fans in before the game. They know about it now. They get down to the ground a little bit earlier. They all get in there, and it's absolutely bouncing in there.
It's like a nightclub at half-time.
It's like an away day.
It's unbelievable. You got to see the videos. My friend, United supporter, he said,
day.
"Where's this?" And I went, "It's on the concourse." He went, "You're joking." I went, "No." He went, "Wow."
If it's like a nightclub, I'm going to be relocating from the match day live. Can we do match day live from the South Stand now,
Paul? You're only allowed in with shoes on.
Yeah, I think you'll be around on the VIP list there for the South Stand, Paul. I think you might get in. So an incredible day. We remember it for the hat-tricks from Foden, from Haaland. We remember it for the incredible atmosphere that the fans had, and of course we remember it for all of the United fans in our lives that went very quiet
again
afterwards.
We love it.
We love it. Of course, another Manchester derby victory for City. What an incredible, incredible game. So that was October. We're now going to jump to the 5th of November, of course, bonfire night in the UK, and it was the day that City played Fulham. It is a home game. Now, it may not have been the game that many of us were expecting. Of course, we don't often have uphill battles at home at the Etihad, but this day certainly proved a challenge. But thankfully, Paul, it was a challenge that we overcame. I mean, first of all, can we just have a word on that incredible goal by Julian Alvarez?
Yeah, but he's a top player, isn't he? And to be fair, on the day, Fulham were very good. They made it difficult for us. They kept the ball. They were on a little good run of form as well, and they sort of came. I know a couple of the lads at Fulham, and the manager set them up to just go out there and play. Said nobody's expected anything, go out there, no pressure. If we get a result, which is very doubtful, we do. If we get battered, people expecting us to get battered, don't worry about it. And I think that sometimes when you're going into a game like that, it takes the pressure off you a little bit, and then obviously 1-0 up, Cancelo getting sent off. Soft one, and then obviously them getting back in it here again. It was a difficult game, but to win leagues and to be the best team, you don't always have to play well to win. These are the sort of results that are big moments in the season, and we didn't play well that game, but we kept at it. We showed our experience, because a couple of years ago we probably wouldn't. I don't think we would have came back to win the game. But yeah, obviously penalty last minute, big Erling, nobody was in doubt of it. But people say it wasn't the best penalty he's ever hit, but it doesn't matter, does it?
So nobody was in doubt. Were you in doubt, Emily?
There was a point, obviously. There was a slight glimmer, but then it's what we do. I think fans have to realise that this is a long game with Pep. It's patience, it's perseverance. We grind teams down. It's just what we do. And I remember this period of the season as well with Haaland. He'd had a bit of a knock, so he was on the bench and he came on, and everybody was going around saying, "Oh, it's Erling Haaland FC," and that was the running joke at the time. But that was the abiding moment for me, the celebrations at the end from Pep, because to see what it meant to him going wild, and who doesn't love that last-minute winner? The scenes were unbelievable in the South Stand, in the whole stadium. went wild, and then walking out at the end, obviously because it was bonfire night, there were fireworks going off. So it was just a perfect ending. My kids were going crazy.
My memories of that game, Steve, same as Emily. My overriding memory of that game was the celebrations at the end. Everybody in the stadium stayed to the end of the game, and it was like we were celebrating winning a trophy. It
was like a lap of honour as well.
Yeah, it was like a lap of honour. Yeah. Why do you think that was?
Do you know what? I think you get games like this in every season where I always say it, where you're not quite at the races and things go against you, but you've got to get something. So you might just nick a draw, or you might finally get a win, but you've got to get something you can't lose. And I thought, that game, we just got to keep going. We've got nothing to lose, keep going. And I think it was just, I don't know, I think it was just a relief. You know, the last minute winner, Erling coming off the bench. And I think, you know, after the last minute winner, the crowd's unbelievable. And yeah, it was like a real unity. It was like everyone was together, and yeah, they all came round the south stand. Everyone was clapping, cheering. They did a lap all around the family stand and that. And I think it was more relief than anything that we just got the job done and we didn't drop, 2 points.
I totally agree. The lap of honour at the end, it was such a special moment, and it's a game that really stands out for me from the whole season. I mean, there was some magical games, and it was because of that moment. And how did you view the game as a whole, Sam?
I think the mark of a good team is to win in those difficult moments. Mark of elite teams is to go and pick up points when it probably wasn't your best performance. Obviously, a man down. I still think they dominated the second half. But Fulham, and it reminded me of the Brighton performance a few weeks before that. Brighton came to the Etihad and played really well too, and Fulham followed that sort of style of play. And similar to the Brighton game, City won that, although they were kind of maybe second best in periods of the second half. Like you say, that the thing that stands out to me is the celebrations. Obviously, Pep, we don't tend to see him that animated, especially in wins in that early in the season, but you can see, and like Steve said, I think it was a mark of relief because it was a high-pressure game because Arsenal were still going at a rate of knots at that stage. They looked like they were on course to get 100 points. They just kept seeing teams to the side. So to get that win and stay with them was massive. And we talked about Julian Alvarez, but I mean, what a striker he is, and to have him to start and Erling to come on and vice versa, I think that's just such a talent of riches that they've got, and he's had a great season as well. I think we were doing some stats after the end of the season, and he scored 17 goals, Alvarez, in all competitions, which is phenomenal, but that's only second to Haaland's 52, which just shows how crazy Haaland's season was. But 17 goals in your maiden season in England from someone who's never played outside of Argentina is phenomenal, and if Haaland hadn't had the record-breaking season he was, I think that would probably get highlighted a little bit more.
And with the World Cup in the middle that you won as well.
Exactly. Yeah, 2 goals in the semi-final as well. So
that's a pretty decent
not
year for the young
a bad
man.
season for him. Yeah.
So one of the key things you mentioned about this game, Paul, is the fact that there was this sort of dogged determination to go out and win it against kind of the uphill battle that we felt like we were facing, down to 10 men. Have you played? I imagine you've played in many a game. Tell us what it's like when you are in that kind of fighting situation and you just know that you need to win and you need to get through it.
Yeah, you do everything you can to win. But I think the most impressive thing about this is the mentality of the players as well. 99% of clubs, when it's 1-1 and you're down to 10 men, you take the point. You sit behind it and you think, do you know what, it's not going to be our day. We'll take the point. We're down to 10 men. It's not a bad point at the end of the day, but they just keep going and going and going. And they want to win every single game. And they keep saying about fighting to the end. The amount of times over the last couple of years that they never give up. They always believe they're going to score. They always believe they're going to do it. And to win, to go on and get the 3 points, as the guys were saying there, especially Arsenal were absolutely flying at the minute. So, all right, there was celebrations, but I think a lot of the celebrations were relief.
I often say to you, and I'll tell you a million times over, for me, the fight till the end, it's in the DNA of the club, and it was implanted by you and your colleagues
and
teammates in '99, and I just feel like it's something that is in our DNA now, Emily.
Yeah, and that day as well, there've been a couple of other goals and they've been disallowed. So we were going crazy celebrating Johnny Stones getting the ball in the back of the net. And everybody was loving that moment, and then that was like, disallowed. And then, but you felt that momentum in the second half. You felt like it was coming, and you were looking at the clock thinking, right, the clock's running down. And then Erling scored, and that was disallowed. And it was kind of, that elation of the celebration, back down again, back up and down. But then you felt like it was, race against time. And then that final minute, I feel now I'm at the point over. I did say there was a little moment in maybe in the very beginning of the second half, but I feel now I'm always confident that we will fight to the end and we'll get through it. I don't have that doubt anymore in this team.
It's so true. I'm the same, Steve. As long as there's time left on the clock, I still feel like we can do it.
We won the league in injury time. Gundogan, goals. We came back from the death. It's in the club, like you say. You look back through the last 6 or 7 years, there's been games where we've nicked it late on. But there's been title winners in other clubs over the years that have done that. And I remember looking at them thinking, they're jammy them. But they're not jammy. It's just a sign of a good team, you know what I mean? And we are a good team. So, and I think the Etihad Stadium is a great place because the fans don't get on the back. We sort of with them till the end, you know what I mean? We don't criticise them. We just go with it. And Fulham were on the ropes there, like Paul said before. Fulham had came there and they played well. They just played some good football, and they were really unlucky. But we kept going, and like you say, the word that springs to mind is what we've all said: relief. And I think you can see that in the players' faces, and I think they just thought, yeah. Do you remember Raheem Sterling scoring against Southampton?
Yes.
Exactly the same scenes. Last minute, everyone running around the pitch, ball boys were doing backflips, everything. And that's the same. It's relief. It's just in you. You just like, oh God, thank God. You know what I mean? And that's when you know things are happening in the season. You know what I mean?
What was impressive for me, I think, there would have been frustration from the fans and on the pitch, but it didn't boil over into didn't derail the performance. They kept their belief, and I think that's why the relief of we've talked about the scenes. Is that frustration just gone. And like the mentality of this team was just great. That they would have been frustrated because Fulham was sitting deep and nullifying the attacks, but they didn't let that sort of affect the performance, and they carried on going to the end and got the goal they needed.
Yeah, so Steve made a good point before about other teams doing it in previous years, and you do think they're a bit jammy, but what that does, and look, I've been in the opposition teams quite a bit. When you get to the last 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes of the game, and you're hanging on in there, mentally you're expecting them to score. Because,
really?
Yeah. And it's so difficult to get that out of your head because you know that you're playing against a top team. You know they're a team that knows how to win games, win championships, even though they're not playing well. And it sucks you in. And you're watching the clock all the time. And like 5 minutes of injury time, it ends up feeling like 15, 20 minutes as an opposition player when they're coming at you. And I've just seen, when Erling scores there, you can sort of see the Fulham players as if to say,
yeah,
we knew that was going to happen. And that would have been in their psyche for the last 15, 20 minutes of the game. And that's such a huge advantage to have. And when you're not playing well and you're playing against teams that are hanging on, knowing the opposition, it's as if they'll never admit it, but they're expecting it to happen.
With that Erling penalty as well, of course, by this point, we already know he's doing incredible because he's already scoring a lot of goals. Was there something in this moment as well, Paul, that even showed you further about his character, with it being, the last few minutes of the game, a goal to win it, the atmosphere in the stadium, the fact that he was able to hold his nerve? Did it show us even more about him?
It's his mentality is, honestly, he's so strong mentally for such a young boy. People forget he's only 22 years old. And not just taking a last-minute penalty. Look, he would have wanted, but coming off the bench and then having to take the penalty, it's difficult, to get into it because you've not got 90 minutes under your belt where you're embedded in the game. You're coming on as sub, you're maybe not as fresh, maybe a bit disappointed you're not starting. He's carrying a little bit of an injury. As soon as he gets the ball straight away, and nobody was taking that ball off him. He believed he was going to score. I think everybody in the ground believed he was going to score. Although it wasn't the best penalty, I keep telling them that.
It went in. It went in.
It's all that matters.
Yes, the Fulham game, the 5th of November. What a game. What an atmosphere. Another example of how the Etihad crowd really, really helped and affected the players as well. What a game. So we've gone post-World Cup. Julian Alvarez has come back with his medal. And we've taken a trip down south to the league leaders. Of course, Arsenal flying high at this time. What were you feeling in the run-up to the game, Steve?
For me, obviously I know a lot of these Arsenal fans, the big ones, Don Robbie and that, who you've had here at the stadium. So I was down there for 3 days before. I did some different media things, and I was telling them that what we was going to do to them, and they didn't believe me, and they did believe me deep down, but they didn't. They were trying this fragile confidence, and I said, look, we're coming to win. We know how to win. Don't worry about us. And I just felt it in my chest that day, everything about it. All the fans travelling up on the coaches were ringing me, we're going to do it today, Steve. And everything about what Pep was saying and what the team was saying was just confidence. And that's what the Arsenal fans I knew couldn't handle. It was the confidence. They tried to say you come across a bit arrogant, but it's not arrogance, it's confidence. And in the big matches, Manchester City turn up. That's why we win the league. That's why we're champions, because in the big games, we go there and we get it done. And I was super confident, and I was like, I was really looking forward to a game of football. So I was really like, right, they're playing really well. They've started the season unbelievable. You've got to give them credit. It's Mikel Arteta versus Pep Guardiola. It's the master v the teacher. You know, they've been talking a lot what they're going to do and how the topic, you know, and all this stuff. And I thought, let's go and show them. And we've shown them.
We had Robbie here at the stadium, as you say, and I'd said to him, I'm just so confident. And again, he said it's arrogant.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, because it's nothing. It's actually nothing to do with you. It's us.
It's us, yeah.
Yes, I'm just confident in us. Tell us about that first goal, Paul. I mean, Kevin De Bruyne, we know, is very special. And sometimes I feel like he does things that makes us go, yeah, he's even better than special.
And in the big games as well. You know, I think Jack's got to take a lot of credit for it as well. You know, Jack's made the goal by putting the pressure on Tomiyasu, forcing the mistake. Then it's going to Kevin. I thought, take it round him. You know, the keeper's out. I think everybody was thinking, take a touch, take it round him, you're through one-on-one. And he's probably the only player on the pitch that's seen what he's seen. You know, and with his if he's got a weaker foot, that is, and the finish was absolutely sensational. But I was super confident going into the game. I just felt that the big players turn up in the big games, and we've got better players than them. And you know, we mixed it up as well, because Arsenal came to the Etihad just before Christmas in the FA Cup, and they caused us a lot of problems. They didn't let us play out from the back. They pressed us really high up. They won the ball high up, and I think they were going to do the same thing. But you know, Pep and the players, a lot of the times, I'd never seen Ederson kick the ball as long that game.
Yeah, it was a good outlet, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was unbelievable, because they kept pushing and pushing and pushing to stop us, and Ederson just kept clipping it in to Erling, and we played from there, and Arsenal didn't know what to do. But yeah, what a performance, what a game, and I love this goal. You know, I was absolutely buzzing for Jack, because he'd been sensational, and you know, you can tell what it meant to him, the passion. Don't take your shirt off, mate, you've just been booked. You can see that there. But it was just to go and celebrate in front of the away fans, and the away fans are the best, aren't they?
There's a good looking one on in a minute here on the front row, I think.
Yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
But that was a big moment for Jack as well. You know, if you speak to him about it, that really gave him the confidence to kick on. And you know, I've said it to you before, Natalie, I genuinely believe consistently after the World Cup to the end of the season, Jack was probably our best player. Is that the good-looking mum with the scarf on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just what it meant to him, but in the goal added to it, Emily, but he just had a phenomenal game all round, didn't he?
This, for me, was Jack Grealish's moment of not arriving, but this was the part where it all just seemed to click this game, this Arsenal away game, because I remember posting a picture after the game with him celebrating on his knees, and I put hang it in the Louvre. And it was just his moment. He came back from the World Cup absolutely flying. And I think sometimes you could see the frustration in certain games where it gets in his head, because he knows that certain fans look at games on stats alone.
Yeah.
I hate those stat fans.
It is ridiculous. When you go week in, week out, and you actually witness what he offers to the team, what he brings to the team, he's an absolutely phenomenal player. And that was the game for me. I remember watching his post-match interview, and he was buzzing, and everybody was just on top of him, heaping the praise on him, rightfully so. And he just kicked on again from there. And I think post-World Cup, he was definitely City's best player.
And he does the best post-match interviews out of anybody. I totally agree with Emily on the eye test. For people that are not watching him week in, week out, I feel like they don't appreciate, Sam, how good he's been.
No, he's been absolutely phenomenal. And like you said, from the World Cup onwards, he was just a different player. It was just focused and just impacted every game that he played on. And want to touch on the first goal, what Paul was saying. I think that goal doesn't happen if he doesn't put that press on Tomiyasu, because Tomiyasu could probably take a touch then if he's not being pressed by Jack. But he has that panic and wants to play back to the keeper and hits it soft, and De Bruyne does the rest. But yeah, it was just a great moment, and for him to be able to give fans like Steve and and the guys at a moment like that, I think that just boosts his confidence as well, because we talk about how the players and the fans are really connected at the moment. I think a lot of everyone can see themselves in someone like Jack, because he's so down to earth, and you always want him to do well. So for him to have that moment and then go on to have the rest of the season he had was great for everyone to see.
Totally agree. He's just such a likeable guy. Steve, tell us about the away end that day. Share the experience.
Oh no, it was a great away end. There's a nice story. The lad who's next to me, he's called Ash. He's from India. 2 years ago, Ash messaged me on Instagram and said, I really love this football club, and one day I want to work for Manchester City. So I said, well, you need to come to Manchester. You know, you just can't get a job, like that. So he came to Manchester, and he got in university. And he now is the tour guide at the Etihad. And that was his first ever away game, which I took him to as a treat. He got the train up from Manchester, met me in London. And as you can see on his face, that is a man that has made one hell of a journey from India to work for his club he loves, to celebrate with Big Steve when Jack Grealish scores at Arsenal. So it doesn't get better than that. So my night was made for me and him to be on the telly. And he messaged me afterwards. He said, I've missed my train. I'm in Birmingham Street Station. I've got a tour at 9 o'clock, and my mum and dad have rang me from India, said, we've seen you on TV. And at 5 to 9 the next morning, he messaged me and said, I made my tour. So he come straight from the train station to do a tour at the Etihad. So Ash is the tour guide at the Etihad. So anyone watching it, you go to the Etihad and you see Ash say, Big Steve told us about your journey from India. So it was a nice story, yeah.
There's probably someone watching now that was like, I was on that 9 o'clock tour the day after we beat Arsenal.
I remember
I
it.
was really tired.
He'd never been to an away match before. So I said, we'll go Arsenal. I managed to get some tickets, and as you can see by his face, But we enjoyed it. The away end was one of the best we've ever seen. And like I say, I'm bigging up the fans this season to a next level. I don't think we get enough credit off people. But was it a Wednesday night, Tuesday night?
Something like that, yeah.
We turned up in our numbers. A lot of them walked from a pub down the road, about 300-400 of them, all singing. Brilliant to see. Come out of the ground, same thing. And that's the night I went round to the AFTV after the game and told them what was going to happen.
I think on the atmosphere, my youngest was at the game, and he just messaged me afterwards and went, wow.
Yeah,
it's the best atmosphere I've ever seen. The away fans have always been great, but I think they've said it before, I think the connection now between the players on the pitch and the fans is as strong as it's ever been.
Yeah. Do you think this was the game that tipped the scale? Do you think this put the seeds of doubt in Arsenal's head?
I think it laid the marker, definitely. I think Arsenal hadn't played in a title-defining game in the Premier League for such a while. It was, I wouldn't say a wake-up call, because I think they were still 8 points clear on early April. But as I said, definitely laid that marker down. And from that point onwards to the Arsenal home game in the league, you could see the difference in the two teams. And like you say, the scales had tipped in City's favour. But the experience and the sort of nous of those big games, it didn't faze City, whereas Arsenal, although, like you say, the atmosphere was booming, City weren't fazed. And it kind of took me back to the game there season before, when it was 1-0 when Arsenal had played well and Rodrigo scored late on. And it's knowing about those big games and how to deal with them.
And after the game, the Arsenal fans were finished. They'd gone, and every single one of them was saying, it's over now.
They know that as well, because they know that's what we do as a club. We gain the momentum at that point in the season and we kick on, and that's when the players admittedly thrive. They're like, right, it's do or die now and we'll get to it. And you just felt that night was a bit of a turning point in the season against the title rivals. And again with Jack, the way that he plays on the pitch, he fights for every single thing. He plays like the Arsenal home game. I remember him tracking right back when there was a player that got caught out. He tracked all the way back, and it was one of the biggest cheers of the night.
Yeah.
And that's what he's added to his game. Yeah, it was just a great performance.
Jack deserves all of the praise for the game, but I also do want to give a mention to Ruben Diaz as well. Paul, we saw the tackle. Wow.
But he keeps doing it. Yeah. But in the big games as well, big blocks, big tackles. And, before Christmas, he was out of the team for a little bit. He was injured, and I think we really missed him.
Yeah.
John Stones, Akanji, Nathan Ake have all been sensational. But the leadership skills that he's got, and, nowadays, I say a lot, centre-halves first and foremost want to be footballers and not defenders, where you can tell Ruben Diaz, he celebrates a tackle as if he's just scored the winning goal in the last minute. And that is infectious and it runs throughout the team. And I think the players, his leadership qualities, when he's there, the players really appreciate him. And it's not just that tackle that we've seen before. He does it all the time and in the big games. You know, he's top. Be interesting, you know, obviously Ilkay's gone, who gets the captaincy. But I don't think Ruben Diaz needs the armband just to be the club captain. He leads by example on the pitch. Defensively, we're as strong as we've ever been in a long, long time. And he's a big part of it.
So true, though. He celebrates every tackle, every block, and we celebrate them with him, don't we?
Yeah, and that's what it means to us. And that was, I mean, we'll be talking about other games, and I know that, but the big moments, he stands up to be counted, and you can see he really galvanises. He's the beating heart of this team as well, but we really missed him when he wasn't there. When he came back, I think that was the actual moment where we actually kicked on. His return, if you look at the stats, that was the moment where the momentum built from there, and that tells you everything you need to know about him.
Am I right in saying this came after the Spurs loss away from home? So it was around that time.
Well, we always lose
After
to
that,
Spurs away from home.
I think it was
Next season,
after that loss to Spurs. There was, again, not from inside but from outside, doubts and thinking that Arsenal, this was huge for Arsenal. If they'd won that, then they'd have gone off with it. So the magnitude of the game coming in from a defeat, which was against a Spurs side who had a well-documented troubles last season, just again showed the mentality of this team, that they can rise to those big occasions. They're not fazed by the pressure.
I think the players knew how big that was, the way they've celebrated after. They've just celebrated as if they won the Premier League. You know, you see Ilkay, who's usually really calm, collected, you know, he's gone off his head there celebrating in front of the fans because they knew how big the game was. And you know, you're absolutely right, coming off the back of the Tottenham defeat as well. It was win or bust, that game. You know, because Arsenal were in such good form. If they had beat us, it would have been 11 points.
Yeah,
I think they would have.
So.
And I think they did game in hand at the same time as well. So to go there and not just win the game, but the way they've won it, I think that, you know, Steve's right. Not just the Arsenal fans, but the Arsenal players. I think they thought, oh no.
Paul, I was going to ask you at the end of this game, is it at the point where you thought, yeah, we're definitely going to win this? But I imagine you thought that on the first game of the season.
That anyway, I did. No, it was a huge game. I know everybody was playing it down directly afterwards, but I don't think you can overestimate how important that game was, and how, not just the game but the performance. Because I think even people from the outside in the media were thinking, Arsenal could do them. It's Arsenal's league. You know, everybody in, apart from City fans, I think, weren't expecting us to go there and win. And once we won it, that was the catalyst to go on to the end of the season, because we went in an unbelievable run after that.
I just keep getting goosebumps every time we talk about these things. The hairs on my arms are just standing up. It was a magical, magical evening. We went down to Arsenal and we showed them, oh, they might be top of the league, but we are coming for you. What a game. And so we move to the small matter of a Champions League semi-final, second leg against the reigning European champions. Of course, the team that knocked us out the season before. Real Madrid came to the Etihad Stadium, and wow, what a night we had ahead of us. Paul, before the game, how were you feeling? What were you expecting? Of course, going in with a draw, the game on a knife edge, how were you feeling?
I probably won't surprise you to say I was super confident, Natalie, only because we outplayed them in the game in Madrid. I know we ended up Kevin scored a great goal again. But just talking about the atmosphere in the ground, the atmosphere before the game outside the ground was electric, and you just sensed that something special was going to happen, that it was going to be a special night. But I don't think anybody could have thought that performance against Real Madrid is one of the best I have ever seen, not just from a Manchester City team, but from any team. You know, let's believe people before the game, it's their competition, they always turn up in it, they always win it. But the performance, not just with the ball, but without the ball, was unbelievable. I remember after about 20 minutes, looking at Luka Modric, who for me is one of the best midfielders still in Europe. You know, sensational player. And he just had his hands up in the air when he was getting the ball. He didn't know where to go. He had nobody to pass to. And we just absolutely pressed the life out of them. And then up until the goal, you know, which was brilliant. But the atmosphere, I've never known anything like it. The Etihad, the whole place erupted. And you could just sense, as I said before, even before the game, that it was going to be a special, special night, and that's what it turned out to be.
I still can't believe it, Emily. When I look back, I still cannot believe what we witnessed that night.
I was so excited going into that game because I've been out at the Bernabeu and there was such a belief. I felt like this was a coming of age season for us in the Champions League. After the performance that we put in against Bayern Munich in particular, I felt like the players had really grown in the competition. They'd found the feet. Every single little bit of heartache that we'd had to go through, the games against Monaco, against Spurs, against Lyon, and every game out there in Porto, we'd learned, we'd grown, the experience, that's what we were lacking in that. We just lacked that little bit of experience in the Champions League, how to be savvy and how to play teams as well at their own game. Some, like the performance against Atletico Madrid, where, you know, they play a little bit of the dark arts. Well, we've established that and put everything into our game, but this was the most ferocious, aggressive, relentless press I've ever seen from a team in Europe. We coiled round them like a snake. We strangled them with the press, and what an absolute privilege it was to watch and to be in the stadium that night.
I love that description, by the way. It's so accurate, and I agree. It feels like a real blessing that I was in the stadium that night. A real blessing to see Bernardo Silva score that header, Steve.
No, listen, Paul touched on it before. The performance was one of the best I've ever seen. But I do believe it started in the first leg. I think that we sort of led him into a trap. I don't think we've shown Real Madrid our full deck of cards, and they sort of thought, oh well, we did all right at the Bernabeu, we'll come to the Etihad, you know, we've got a result there before, we'll go there and we'll do it. But again, the fans was on it, the players was on it, it was relentless, the pressing, and it was the best atmosphere I've ever seen, fact. And we just dominated them, the European champions, we dominated them. And we said it this season on a few shows where all these big clubs, they go on about these magical nights at home in the Champions League and stuff, and this was our magical night. This was our, like Emily said, where we sort of grew up a bit. There was nobody more disappointed in Real Madrid last season than me. I'd never experienced anything like that watching football. Within 1 minute, I was thinking about croissants under the Eiffel Tower, and 1 minute later, I was thinking about Blackpool with the kids, and that's the fine line it was. And I kept saying revenge, revenge. And I went on a Real Madrid podcast and they said, score prediction, Steve. And I said 4-0. And I didn't even blink because I was so confident. I thought, we're going to do it. And yeah, the Bernardo Silva. In the Bernabeu, Bernardo Silva didn't have a great game against Camavinga. Didn't really go past him much, but I think he just held it back. First minute of the Etihad, bang, he's round him. The midfield was dominating. Rodri was pressing. Nobody knew what was happening. And like you say, it was a momental night at the Etihad. And that's when you start thinking something's happening here.
We looked at each other there, Steve, because Paul and I were together in the Bernabeu last season when we got beat, and
Pain.
pain.
Every time it gets mentioned, I just feel devastated.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
Same.
But I think that spurred them on for this.
100%.
I think the disappointment in that game, and I know sometimes disappointment, you can go one way or the other, but that was at the back of their heads going into this game.
I think Emily said it, it's learning and it's experience. Yeah. You get hit along the way. And you take it on the chin and you learn from it. If you don't learn from it, then you're never going to get there.
I think that experience as well, Steve, in the first leg after Kevin equalised.
Yeah.
We just...
Calm, yeah.
It was all nice. It wasn't
we didn't have to chase the game, no.
But 2 or 3 seasons before that, we would have tried to get that second goal and left ourselves open at the back.
I think Pep knew. If we get these back to the Etihad, it's different. Marca, the Spanish newspaper, said it was a trap. Manchester City laid a trap, and they got to the Etihad Madrid and didn't know what to do. Yeah. And that was... I love reading that. Is
that psychological sort of advantage of having the second leg at home this time around than last season?
Massive.
It's the record at the Etihad as well. Yeah. They broke the record, didn't they, for Champions League home results. So we were unbeaten for about 26 games. It's knowing now that is a fortress, in particular in that competition. It's a game changer for those players. They know that they can get the teams back there and they can dominate in front of a crowd who will be massively behind and bang up for it. It's just a game changer, and we saw it that night. It just came to fruition, and that's the moment where I thought after Bayern, this is our year. Me and Nat said it on the quiet. We were kind of like feeling it this year. It's going to.
We were whispering it, weren't we, at that point? Yeah.
We weren't shouting it. We weren't publicly saying it, but yeah, the belief was growing, and it came from the experience that was growing in the competition.
There was no over celebrating. They were all saying Everton Sunday.
There's no individuals. That was the most complete team performance that we've ever seen, I think, from an English club in European football, in the Champions League in particular. But it is a team effort. Everybody stands up for a man to be counted.
Oh, I feel like I could watch these highlights.
I think
over
4-0
and
flattered
over.
them.
It did.
It could have been 4 or 5 at half time. Courtois was
If that
unbelievable.
situation there happens 10 times, he scores 9.
And then there's the one just after that he pulls off an unbelievable save. And it was just relentless. Everything. Every time they had the ball on top of them, every time we had the ball, we looked as if we were going to score. It was
They didn't touch the ball for about 20 minutes. And to say that against Real Madrid, it's not, it's not disrespect, it's the truth. And the whole world watched it, and we finally started to get a little bit of credit in different media outlets for it, which was nice. But, it was just, for me, it was revenge. It sort of eased that wound from the year before, and we move on.
Where does it rate for you, Sam, in terms of our performances throughout the season? Was it the best?
Yeah, I think without a doubt that's the best performance. It was electrifying, that first half, with the atmosphere of the fans and the performance. And talking about the first goal, we talk about players and their mindset. When Bernardo Silva has that chance, it almost was like slow motion before he sort of sent Courtois the wrong way. But that just shows his composure and how brilliant they are under pressure. But as a team performance, especially in that first half, it was incredible. And to see, we spoke about him earlier, Alvarez again got on the score sheet, someone who's 17 goals, almost an unsung hero. Akanji, I think it was his first goal for the club as well. It's not a bad time to do that. So it's just, these moments sometimes fall at the right times, but they work incredibly hard to get in there. And I talked about the psychological factor of having the second leg at home, but you've still got to make it count. And my word, didn't they make it count?
Do you think, Steve, last season, if the games had been reversed and we'd have played at home in the second leg, we would have done it last season? Or did last season need to happen?
I think part of it needed to happen. I think last season we would have gone to the Bernabeu and tried to force it. And I think what you've seen this season, we went to Leipzig, didn't panic, got a draw, came back, hit them for 7. The Etihad was always our secret weapon this season for me. It was just go to Real Madrid and do a mature, disciplined performance. Paul spoke about it, mentality. Don't rush it, don't force the game, don't go gung-ho, get caught on the counter-attack and end up going back to the Etihad having to claw anything back. 1-1 is a great result at the Bernabeu. Then it was like, you're coming to the Etihad now, underestimate it all you want, but you ain't going to be ready for what's coming. And they wasn't ready for what was coming on and off the pitch.
We comment, Bernardo Silva, the goal scorers, how incredible they were. But again, Emily, I really want to highlight how good the defence was. To Edison and all the defenders, how solid we were in this game.
And that level of trust as well now that you see with the defence and moving forward, it's just such a collective unit, so strong, so powerful. And I think Edison as well, give him more credit, please, because we see it as well with another very special game that we're going to be looking at soon. But he has took pelters with people saying he's not a shot stopper. Excuse me. He's the full package. He could offer everything as a goalkeeper. And I think that kind of goalkeeper, we've seen it as well with the Pep effect, is transform football. But the unit on the back, and then John Stones as well, being a bit of a secret weapon moving into midfield.
Insane.
He has just been a phenomenon. The way that he has transformed this season. Yeah, what a team. Pep playing it from the back. Wow.
Pep had to change mid-season. Something wasn't quite working. We had a bit of a lull, and Haaland wasn't getting the regular chances. It just all looked a bit not right. He changed it. He played 4 central defenders, and if you play 4 central defenders, their initial thought as a centre-back is to defend. If you've got 2 full-backs, modern full-backs tend to want to attack. So we just look a complete unit now. Last 10 or 15 games of the season, we was hardly conceding any goals. And it just works. But you've got to give the manager credit for that. He's not been stubborn and thought, well, it's a bad patch, we'll get over it. He's realised there's a problem, and he corrected the problem. And it worked, and that's why he's the best manager in the world for me. And John Stones, you can see him celebrating there with Ruben Diaz. I mean, look at it, the scenes, and this is what it means to this football club, and the supporters. We're all on board, and we're all pulling in the right direction, and it's fantastic to see. Rodri there, another one, unbelievable.
We spoke about Diaz earlier, his importance and coming back from injury, but it shows his captaincy and his leadership. Without him there, I don't think you can allow Stones to go into midfield, because he can marshal that 3. Yeah. expertly, so it just, every piece of the jigsaw kind of fits perfectly, and without Diaz there, Stones can't go into midfield, so everyone's importance impacts everyone else, and that just results in a performance like that and a result like that.
So, again, another lovely description. I love the idea, the different jigsaw pieces, and in this game, that was a completed jigsaw.
It was. I mean, John Stones, can't give him enough credit. He's been absolutely sensational. And he's the best centre-half / right-back / midfielder in the world. And he's been great. But look, sometimes at the end of the season, one or two players step up and they stand out. You're looking at the highlights here, Bernardo, Ilkay, Jack, Kevin De Bruyne was unbelievable in both the Madrid games. Then obviously you've got Erling. And then you've got Phil Foden and Alvarez coming off the bench. Great ball, great finish, and that strength and depth. But every single player, Ederson, made big saves. People for the Bayern Munich game when it was 0-0. Yeah. Just before half-time, just after half-time, he made 2 unbelievable saves. And we don't go on and win that game 3-0 if that doesn't happen. And he made a couple of good saves. The touch onto the crossbar, people don't give him the credit for it there. No. And that's at 0-0 in this game. And that's what goes on and helps you win Champions Leagues and titles. It's having the complete package as a team, and every single player stood up. We could sit here and we spoke about Diaz, we've just spoke about Bernardo, not even really spoke about Kevin De Bruyne yet. We've spoke about Erling, we've spoke about Jack. The whole team, Ilkay, everybody has stepped up to the plate, and not just 7, 8 out of 10. They've all been 9 and 10s. Yeah. And it just shows you how much they really want it. And
so a message was sent far and wide around Europe and across the world. Manchester City were on for a treble. But before that, there was a little matter of an FA Cup final. And an FA Cup final against our nearest and dearest, of course, the first ever Manchester Derby FA Cup final. It'll be no surprise to any of you that I was an absolute mess before this game, as my nerves always are. Steve, how were you feeling before the game?
Yeah, I was the same. I was in the Green Man, which is the pub there at Wembley. It was thousands of City fans there. And I think there was a lot of nerves around for this game because it was a Manchester derby, obviously, but the treble was starting to look, even though I would never talk about it, it was starting to look like it was on, you know what I mean? And I think a lot of City fans were nervous with it, and I think it was the fact that they could stop the treble, because I think they had nothing left in the season, really, other than... I think them stopping the treble was better than them winning the FA Cup. I think that's what they were going to dine out on. But at the end of the day, no, nerves were there again. One of them, just let's just get in there and get this job done. I wanted to get in there, get it done, and get home as quick as possible.
I was the same, yes, yeah. And
Just
I wanted
in and out.
Yes, get it done. Yeah, not spend too much time thinking about it.
No, get it done and get out of there. But people always make me nervous now, because I'm like trying to be calm, but I meet that many fans. I meet every typical fan. I meet the confident fan, the nervous fan, the reckless fan. I meet them all. So sometimes my mood then starts to wane a bit and think, hold on a minute. I was confident before, but now I spoke to John there. I'm like...
Oh, you need to hang around with Paul. He makes everyone feel confident, yeah.
But the people come for me for inspiration. Steve, just tell us it's going to be all right. And I'm like, don't worry, it's going to be all right. But no, the nerves were big. It was a Manchester derby. It was even just walking down Wembley Way and mixing with each other. And, it is what it is. It's a Manchester derby at the end of the day. It's not pleasant.
Honest answers from all. Were you in your seat when they scored?
I was back at base working the game from the...
But you were watching?
But I was watching inside, saw it.
Were you in your seat?
Yeah.
Okay, were you in your seat? Oh! Where were you?
I had been working.
Okay,
I had been working and literally got into the box and somebody said, do you want a quick glass of wine? I went, yeah, go on then. The game's just kicking off now. And I just took a sip of my wine. I heard them screaming, scoring, so I was gutted.
You in your seat?
Yeah. In the seat. And it was going into the game, that fear of the unknown, because it was the first FA Cup Manchester Derby final. There was so much on the line with City going for the treble, obviously them wanting to protect the legacy. So it was the fear of the unknown, but I was a little bit confident. But for me, I'd been saying, ironically, it was all about how City started the game. And when
they were listening then.
When that goal went in, I was thinking, wow, this could be a cricket score. I really thought we'd push on then and really turn them over, but I did have that inkling of they could leave it all out there on the pitch, and we still had Istanbul a week later. So I was a bit fearful of if we'd be a little bit tentative, if we'd play it a little bit safe. And from there, we saw how the game panned out. Yeah, it was a bit of a nervy one, really.
It was the least enjoyable game of football I think I've ever watched in my whole entire life, Steve. Obviously, the celebrations at the end felt absolutely incredible.
Yep.
Like, I went wild at the end, but through the game, hated it, Steve.
No, yeah, it's so bad, the nerves and that. But I don't know. I think once we scored, even when the penalty was a bit mad, but you know it is what it is. It's the letter of the law. But when Gundogan scored that second one, I thought to myself, yeah, these ain't got enough in the tank to come. We weren't even at first gear. And maybe Paul could answer this, being an ex-player, but when you've got such a massive game like the Champions League final the week after, will that be in some players' heads? Even if it's like, oh, I might get injured, or I don't want to overdo it because I want to play in that game. I mean, or is it like, or do you just try and block that out and just play for the minute?
They were just focused on that game. They knew how big it was, especially for the fans. You know, first ever Manchester derby in an FA Cup final. They knew that United would be doing everything they possibly could to stop us winning the treble. And they're almost robotic in how their mentality is. It's like, and it's Pep says it all the time, it's all about the next game. The players come out and say it. People don't believe it, they think, they must be thinking. They are. And that is special because it's so hard to do.
John Stones heading the crossbar there, that just shows you what it meant to him.
Yeah, what it meant to them all. And I'm like, you know, once Ilkay scored the second goal, I was completely comfortable. Yeah. If they'd ended up getting a draw or nicking a win, they would have celebrated as like they won the treble in '99.
Yeah, we didn't. They would have done that.
But I think the game in February, we don't want to touch on the defeat too much, but I think the game in February at Old Trafford might have done them a bit of a disservice because they played the same way and got the result, like you say, Paul. But
well, they were lucky though.
Yeah, so, it was a fortuitous win, and that's what they're hoping for in this game as well. And you could see that was where they're playing, sitting behind the ball and try and stifle. But City had learned and were on this mad momentum run, and it just wasn't going to happen on that day.
I think if the treble as well wouldn't have been on the line for them, it would have been 4 or 5-0. Such was the difference in class. But I want to give a shout as well to Stefan Ortega because he is an outstanding goalkeeper. He's been phenomenal in the cup competitions, and that day was the only goal he conceded in the FA Cup.
I was so gutted
I
for him.
was gutted because it was such a contentious decision as well. But that was literally the only goal he conceded. He's been fantastic for us.
Such a great point, yeah, to go through to play, you know, every game in the competition, to not concede a goal from open play in the whole competition, and to be able to step up. I mean, Paul, how hard is it to not play? Obviously, he's training, you know, a day in, day out, but to only play in the games and to go in with that level of concentration, I think that's a great point.
Goalkeepers are a special breed, and I mean that in the nicest possible way. But Stefan's come into the club, he knows he's going to be number 2. He knows Ederson's one of the best, if not the best goalkeeper in the world. He knows he's going to get the chances. And you know what, I was really happy that he played. Yeah. Because it would have been, with the treble, going for the double, with it being United, it would have been very easy for Pep to put Ederson in goal. But Pep's got the trust in him. You speak to Scott Carson, Scott says he's a top goalkeeper. Yeah, you know, they work with him every day, the old goalkeepers union, and he's a fantastic guy who's obviously got a great attitude, but I was gutted for that as well because I think we would have broken another record if we kept a clean sheet as the only team not to concede in an FA Cup run.
And to do it on such a soft decision, Paul.
I know, it was ridiculous. I don't think anybody in the ground thought it was a penalty. But it gave them a little bit of hope that didn't last very long.
Do you know what? I feel like we didn't have a chance to celebrate it because...
I don't know.
Well, you might. we beat Man United in the FA Cup, but then all of a sudden, after that game, driving home, it was on. We've just won the FA Cup, the Premier League. We're going to Istanbul next week against Inter Milan to win the Champions League, and then that was it. Then it was just in the chest. I'm thinking every possible scenario is going through your head. What's it going to be like, and and all that, and it's just I don't know. That's when it really started. The treble started to kick in. Then I didn't want to mention it. I kept calling it the T word, and people say, "Why won't you mention it, Steve?" Because I think that we're the only football club in the last few years that's getting judged on a treble and a quadruple. People keep mentioning it with us, but hold on a minute. There's been teams, over the years that the treble is so hard to do. It's so hard to do. So I found it was getting bandied around too much. But that's the time when I thought this team is special. You look at the games we've watched so far. And if you had one of them games in a season, you'd say it was a great, occasion. We're looking at, a few of them, but for me, after that game, going home, like I say, Man United fans, no one was answering the calls, and Istanbul was calling, and I just thought, we're going to do it. I think we're going to make history here. Next week could be the best time of my life, or the worst again. And that's how fine it is, you know what I mean?
But every treble is special, and say it's such a hard thing to do, but to have win the first all Manchester FA Cup final, to beat the last team to do it in this country, I think just adds to another angle of speciality of this fantastic
The
achievement.
difference is as well, they had the chance to end our treble. We was in League Two, so it you know, that's the difference for me. They could have done it. It was down to you. The manager did a speech at Old Trafford the week before, getting the crowd going and that. I'm all for that. I don't mind that, but this is a different mentality. This is a different football club now than what people think, and I just like the way everyone underestimates us and doesn't think we're going to do it. And like you say, we've done it.
We spoke a lot as well about mentality, and after the drive home and when you go home and one of the first things you do is obviously watch the game back. One of the things that really stood out for me was at the final whistle, every single player was just yelling one more immediately.
Yes. Yeah.
The final whistle blew and Haaland is screaming in everybody's face going one more, and that is the mentality. They've just beat their bitter rivals in an FA Cup final. They've won 2 trophies, and the first instinct out of the mouth, the first thing they say is one more, because they're already focused on the bigger goal.
I think that Real Madrid game hurt them last season as well, the team. I think it was so close. And we feeling it as fans in the stand, what they feeling. And then Pep's got to then regroup them all and get them going. And that's why what they've done this season, when you sit back and break it down, it's unbelievable, because it could have gone the other way. It could have been that knock-on effect. You see teams drop off. Like, you know, Liverpool the other season were on for a quad. They ended up with the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. And then the season after, they've dropped off. So it's not easy to do. So that's why you got to give credit to Pep for getting that mentality installed in these lads, to not feel sorry for yourself, to pick yourself up and go to Real Madrid and prove that we deserve it. And we did, and we've done it.
For this game as well, Sam, and for all the games, I want to give a special highlight to Ilkay Gundogan, of course, he nearly had a hat-trick. Oh, I so was desperate for him. And again, the captain stood up at a time when we needed him.
Yeah, and that's what he's done throughout his entirety of his Man City career. I think, obviously, talk about the game at Aston Villa. He stepped up when we needed him last season. But you talk about that goal, the fastest goal in FA Cup final history, but the technique, it's not an easy goal to score. It's an unbelievable goal, and I think because of everything that's happened, it's not going to fall under the radar, but that is such a special goal, and the way he's taken it, it's just highlights how crucial and how good he was with a player. But the technique of the second goal was probably, I'm talking Paul, probably no better than me, but it's very similar, but to hit the volley in a different way of his mentality of seeing that ball come across, it's different. Like the one he's got to react to quicker in the first half, he sees that ball come across in the second half. 2 very different skills of seeing it here. I mean, it's crazy. It's absolutely mad, and he just turned up at those moments to deliver something special, and when they needed him, and he was just such a great player.
The faces of disbelief with the celebrations as well gets me every time. They just cannot believe 12 seconds. It's just wow.
It's just,
You know what's even more impressive about Ilkay? He probably knows in that game, the games previous, where he was outstanding Everton away.
Yeah.
He probably knew he was leaving at that point, and to be able to turn around and put in that sort of performance, knowing that you're going to a different club.
Yeah.
A lot of players would have switched off and think, well, I'm not here next year. He wanted to leave, having his legacy. He wanted to go out there and show everybody that what a top player he is, what a top person he is, and he wanted to go out a winner.
Oh, and he's left us a legacy, hasn't he? He really has. Thank you, Ilkay. What an incredible day. As soon as that final whistle went, the sense of relief, was absolutely insane. Just a phenomenal day. Of course, we lifted the FA Cup again, beating Manchester United. And then it sunk in that in a week's time, we would be playing in the Champions League final. A trip to Istanbul beckoned us. Inter Milan were our challengers that evening. And of course, one of Inter Milan's star players is a man that we knew very, very well. Of course, Edin Dzeko, part of our Premier League winning team, of course, the first time that we did it. A real fan favourite. I mean, it was lovely to see him again, wasn't it, Steve?
Yeah, it was good to see him. Edding's a big fan favourite at Manchester City. I think he's part of our history. You know, the Aguero moment. He got us back in the game before it. And I just think everyone wished Edding well. You know what I mean? It was sad to see him at the end, a bit upset, but he got a really good round of applause from the Man City supporters. And we always love someone that represented the club like Edding did. And yeah, it was tough to take for Edding, but you know we had to do what we needed to do. But it was good to see him, and he's had a great season for Inter Milan, and yeah, it was good to see him out there.
And he got a lovely applause when he came off, and I thought that was a really nice moment for everybody.
Absolutely, City fans hold him in such a high regard. We even still sing the song most weeks, but there was no singing it that night, obviously. But yeah, I was worried about him putting a kind of spanner in the works. I was saying in the run up to it, you know, it'd just be typical if I didn't have a say that night, but I was pleased that he didn't. But I think he would have known the magnitude of what it meant to City, and especially to the fans that night as well. I think deep down he would have been so happy for all the Blues, and obviously would have gone up to all the players and had a little cheeky hug and a catch up with them. But yeah, he's held in such a high regard, and rightfully so. I think he's a bit underrated as a player for us and what he did.
It felt like there was an element of respect between the fans as well, certainly in the stadium and when we were walking around the city as well, Paul. And of course, so many of them stayed.
Yeah, they did. And a huge respect to Inter Milan fans, you know, being in and around on the Friday, Istanbul, Saturday before the game. Sometimes big games like this, there can be a bit of an edgy atmosphere out and about in the major city because you don't know if it's going to kick off, if there's going to be fights or whatever. But there was nothing at all. And at the end of the game, I remember looking at the Inter Milan fans, and they all stayed to watch City, you know, lift the trophy, and were applauding them. And I thought that's quite special, that, because I don't know if I would have stayed if Inter Milan had beat us. You know, I would have been devastated and probably straight out the ground. So I think there was a huge amount of respect between both teams, between both sets of fans, and between both clubs as well. And it was really good to see. Look, it's easy to say that when you've won. Might not have been saying the same thing if we'd lost, but you know, I think you've got to give a lot of credit to the Inter Milan fans.
That's like reflective of the whole experience. I think the game was played in the right fashion. It wasn't a dirty game. Both players were there to play to win, and that just reflected across the whole week with the fans, and obviously respect for Edding as well. So yeah, it was a great experience for both all round, I think.
How was the build-up for you in the week running up to the final?
It was super busy. I think from my point of view, I just wanted to get the game. I just wanted to get to the stadium, although it took ages, we all know that. I was super confident, but I was a bit worried about everybody thinking it was only Inter Milan.
Yeah.
It's going to be easy. There was no way that was going to be easy. You know, they were going to do everything they possibly could to try and upset us, to make it difficult to break them down, and they did that throughout the game. But, you know, we went out on the Friday, we had an event on the Friday night, and I think everybody just wanted to get to the stadium and get the game over and done with. We had a great Friday night, didn't we?
We did.
We had an even better Saturday night after the game, and an even better Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. But no, look, it was just special. There's a different feeling about it as well before the game. You know, we were in Porto a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of apprehension around the place. Yeah. Whereas there was just a complete, keep talking about atmosphere, a complete different atmosphere. The City fans were sensational. Everywhere you went in Istanbul, there was just, you could just hear them singing, dancing, enjoying themselves. And it just had a special feeling about it. And I know the game wasn't the best. There was no way we were losing that game.
No.
And I just had that feeling about it.
The Friday night was the best Friday night of my life in that street, in Nevezade Street. Yeah, wow, I have never seen anything like that in my life. There were City fans from like the ground level, first floor, second, you know, on the roof, hanging from everywhere, swinging from everywhere, just having the absolute time of our lives out there, all celebrating. Because obviously at that point we'd already won 2 trophies. It had been an incredibly successful season, but we were in line for the treble. And you know, I watch it now and it does provoke, it tears me up a little bit because of how special a night it was. And going into it at the fan park, everybody was in such a great mood. There was such a fantastic atmosphere. But I'm with Paul. I was worried that we would underestimate Inter Milan because Inzaghi, he's the king of the cups. They'd won the Coppa Italia. I knew that they'd sit deep. They've got great defenders and that was their game plan and that's how it transpired. But I knew obviously that we've got that dogged determination and we've got players who are capable of winning huge games like this and again, they stepped it up to be counted.
So the week running up to it was busy, it was fun, the Friday night was absolutely incredible, and then we get into this Saturday. How were you feeling as you were walking towards the stadium, getting into the stadium?
It's like Paul just mentioned, in Porto, there was a different vibe. Me personally, in Porto, I didn't think the fans believed we should have been there. And I think that went through to the players on the pitch. I think, you know, there were a lot more City fans in Porto than Chelsea, but on the actual day of the game, we were flat. And when we coming up to the stadium in Istanbul, when we got in that fan zone, I was on the stage with Danny and Wingman. It was like Glastonbury. I walked out on the stage, I was like, whoa, this is what it's about. Everyone was bouncing, buzzing, and coming up to me, we're going to do it tonight, Steve, we're going to do it, we're having it tonight, we're going to win the treble and all that. And I thought, we're on it here. And it was like the army had assembled at the gates and we was ready to go. And we got in that stadium and, like you say, everyone was on it. And like what Paul said, there was no way we was losing that game. No way. We had a few more gears in the tank, I think, and we had a few more options than them. Inter Milan, this was most of them players growing up have dreamt about Champions Leagues. So you can't think that, oh, it's only Inter Milan. That was a night of their lives. They were going to put everything on the line. They're all them players looking in the mirror in the morning going, I'm fighting for the Champions League tonight. And at the end of the day, we got it done. And the relief, I think the relief's the word. It lifted from all of us the second that whistle went. And like you say, you're seeing some saves here from Edison. And Edison, Emily said it before, you know, some people criticise him. He's got everything in the locker. And that night there, you know, the last save at the end from the corner, it was unbelievable. And like you say, there was raw, and there was a lot of emotions in that stadium, and coming out the ground and seeing fans I'd seen over the years in Division 2 and people from Main Road and people crying and all that, and experiencing it with everyone. It felt like the journey, what we'd all started together, had just come to a nice little ending there. And I'm thinking, there's nothing you can throw at this club anymore because we're there now. And that's it. And that's how I still feel now.
Yeah, very, very special night. Very blessed to have been there. In terms of the game, Sam, talk us kind of through, how did you find the period up until we scored?
Well, I have to say, I thought Inter Milan executed their game plan perfectly. We knew that they were going to sit deep and look to hit long balls and hit on the counter-attack. And I think they had a couple of openings in the first half, a couple of warning signs, and they just lacked a bit of quality maybe in midfield of a runner to run through. But to echo what the guys said, it just felt like it was City's night. And for as well as Inter played, it just didn't feel like City were going to lose that game. And yeah, the nerves started creeping in because it took to the hour mark until the goal went in. But it just was the right time. And for the goal to score by Rodri, he'd played the most games out of anyone for the season. He's such an important character. Yeah, the relief and the ecstasy was just kind of came hand in hand. And yeah, the moments there, Edison had to step up, and, you know, Lukaku, that's such a clinical finisher, but...
I wonder what he said to him in that moment, you can imagine, right?
But those moments that changed games went in City's favour, like, and Edison putting off 2 or 3 great saves. It just felt like City night, and it
Unbelievable.
What was interesting in our end was that you couldn't see the other end of the pitch. So when Inter Milan were pressing, we were turning around to look at the big screen to watch the saves behind us. And the moment where Edison did the save, I still don't understand how Ruben Diaz gets his head around the ball to head it away and not in the goal. The instinct from Diaz in that moment to head it in that direction still blows my mind. But the tension in the stadium, turning around and looking at the saves and then back, and it was surreal to go through it.
Did anyone else have a reaction similar to some of the players there? So I dropped to my knees, head in hands, and there was a feeling, it was the strangest feeling. I don't know if it was relief, like as you describe it, Steve, but that kind of like taking a moment to take it in and realise
overwhelming.
Done it. Yes, it was very overwhelming.
Really overwhelming. Kind of trying to catch your breath in that split second of when the realisation hit. We've finally done it, but we've not just done it. We've done it as part of a treble.
Treble, yeah.
And I was at Wembley in '99, and when we were 2-0 down, I was stood in the concourse, I was crying with my dad, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, you know, you'll be fine." And I went, "No, you don't understand. That lot have just won the treble, and we can't get out of Division 2. Yeah. And then we heard the roar, and it was Haaland with that goal, and we all pegged it back up, and it was to be out there in Istanbul in that moment, having been back there in that moment at Wembley in '99 and seeing how far we've come as a club. But the fans deserve it. The fans who've been there through thick and thin, and what a moment for them to enjoy.
It was magical. That moment when the ball fell to Rodri, Paul, I feel like my life went in slow motion in that moment.
It was slow motion.
Like the world stopped.
Yeah. And I think even the celebration, I think it took a few seconds to the fans to realise that we'd actually scored.
First thing I did is look at the linesman.
Yeah.
I just stood like that, like a meerkat. And then when I see the linesman's flag down there, and everyone just went mad.
Yeah. Even it still seems a little bit surreal now, looking back at it. But it was a special night. I'll never forget. I had my 2 boys with me. And it was just an unbelievable. They started crying. I thought, you're going to start me in a second as well. But just every emotion possible, I think, came out. You know, the build up to the game, then the nerves within the game, then the last sort of few minutes with Ederson. I think everybody was just like, I remember getting the coach back and it was silent.
Yeah.
Because that's you've used all your mentally drained there. I've seen it all, and like I say, there's nothing anyone can say. There's nowhere they can take this club now where I haven't been before. So it's, you know, this just completes it for me, and I'm just, I went out after the game on a stupid one and bought a replica European Cup for 1,500 quid. So Mrs. wasn't happy when that got delivered. What are you doing with that? I'm putting it with the Premier League in the cupboard. So I've got this big European Cup at home, stainless steel now. But listen, I sat there, I put it on my Instagram. I put it on my coffee table in work, and I sat there and I just take a picture of it every now and then, just wind a few people up and that. But no, I always wanted one. I always thought if I win the European Cup, I'm getting one.
I'm getting one. European Cup, yeah.
I'm getting one, so I got one. So yeah,
That's amazing.
My life's complete now.
Look at Erling Haaland's face there.
You know, when you take a step back and look at that kid's season, at 22-year-old, to come to Manchester City with the pressure of being our new number 9, we've had no striker and we've won the league 2 years on the trot. So to come in and then mid-season, when he's scoring at that rate, to turn around and say he's not chose the right team and it's not clicking and in all that nonsense, well, who's got all the medals around his neck at the end of the season? Erling Haaland. Who's broke every Premier League record? Erling Haaland.
52 goals.
It's unbelievable. And that's why people should start watching football with their eyes, in my opinion. And we watch him every week, and he's unbelievable. And the fact that he's a City fan, and the fact that he gets it, and the fact that he's got the connection with the fans, it's unbelievable. You know, it's unbelievable. And what a season. All these guys, Paul's team has gone down in history. And we've had some fantastic teams since then, Centurions and things like that. But this team's on another planet.
On another planet.
Paul's team walked, so this team could run.
Yeah, well, they know without them guys.
We were rubbish, though.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't. No, you weren't. Far from it. You were absolutely fantastic. And that day will live with City fans forever. Wembley '99, unforgettable day.
And watching these scenes of them celebrating, just remembering how I felt at the time. Look what it means. I mean, and we've not even mentioned Kevin De Bruyne, of course, going off. I was heartbroken for him.
Did anyone have that Porto flashback moment then, and think, this is a bit too much.
Straight away.
But no, it worked out all right. And Phil, bless him, should have wrapped it up. That turn on the edge of the box, he come through one-on-one. Haaland drove the defender away. I spoke to Phil at the other week, and he said to me, I said, you could have finished it. And he went, I was caught in 6 minds, whether to chip him, put it in the top corner, put it below. And in the end, I just sort of threw my leg at it.
He almost had too much time to think about it.
Yeah. That would have sealed it, that then.
But he was fantastic when he came on.
He was.
And I think the team was, when you lose a player like De Bruyne again, that can affect.
You could go flat, you could go flat.
He's the best player.
I was screaming as well when De Bruyne was walking around, he wasn't sure what was happening, he didn't want to go off obviously, but I was screaming going, get Phil on, because he'll grab it by the scruff of the neck, he'll love it and he'll absolutely thrive out there.
It's not an easy situation to come into as Phil, that early, and that's so much pressure on him to come in that early in the game.
But to go on and play centre midfield as well, where he's not played there a lot this season, that shows you how much Pep trusts him.
Yeah.
Because it would have been easy to put Phil wide and put Bernardo in there.
Yeah.
Because he's done that a lot, but it showed me that, well, we already know how good Phil is, but how much Pep thinks of him. Champions League final, De Bruyne comes off, and you're putting a kid, and he's still a kid, people forget that, into probably one of the most important positions in a Pep team. And to trust him to do that, and I thought he was outstanding. I did, absolutely brilliant.
Would anyone like to see us lift the trophy? Should we have another look? Let's have another look. So here they are going to get their medals. Look at Pep's face. Oh, I love him. Just
look at that look at the trophy. Just give it a nice look, didn't I?
But you watching that, I have all the flashbacks in my mind of all the heartbreak that we went through in that, like really quick moments of, like I said, Monaco, Spurs, being in the Bernabeu at Real Madrid that night was just horrific. The walk back and getting back to the hotel and every single bit of heartache relinquished in that moment.
I just love the way all of them are looking at that trophy, touching it. Look at Mahrez there caressing the trophy. You know, Jack kissing the trophy. Look what it means to them all.
It's a dream, isn't it? As a kid, you look on growing up, we watched the European Cup final. One day you want to lift it. Look at all young kids, they've won it. And Manuel Akanji, we spoke about him before, probably went a bit stale at Dortmund. You know, come to Man City, nobody really said too much about him, but what a season he's had.
Right, and here he is, the captain. Carries the trophy over to his team and we await. I remember I was holding my breath, watching, waiting for the moment that we've dreamt of our whole lives, the moment that we thought would never come. And there it is. What was going through your mind at this point, Paul?
I can't remember. Honestly, I can't remember. I can't. I was just like, wow. I think a special mention to, I don't know if I spoke about Phil, but Rico Lewis, Cole Palmer as well. You know, came all the way through the academy and winning a treble. Cole's won the Euros with the 21s now as well.
Brilliant.
So it's so great to see that it's not just people don't like talking about our academy products because it's not a story for them. They'd rather talk about the money we spent. But you look at they three especially. Rico Lewis this time last year wasn't even. He was captain of the under-18s, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Got his chance to go out pre-season. I don't think. It's no secret. I don't think Pep had actually seen him play.
No.
And he got his opportunity. Went out pre-season. Really, really impressed, and he's finished the season with a treble. It's an unbelievable story.
Be Oscar Bob next. Oscar Bob will come through hopefully now, and players will see that as the example and the benchmark to come through and thrive. But I think my abiding memory was thinking, yes, nobody can come at us for not winning the Champions League
that
anymore.
Song, innit? Champions of Europe. We were singing it in the stadium, Champions of Europe. We'll never sing that. And that's just the one.
I loved Pep's face there as he kind of looked on like a proud dad to all these players and then getting all the staff in and the moment where all the families came on the pitch as well.
Oh, brilliant. The kids were playing and all that.
The kids playing.
Not that he needed vindication, but it was almost that for Pep because there was a lot of noise since he come to City about not winning it, and now he's the first manager in history to win 2 trebles after what he did with Barcelona and coming here, so extra special for him, I'm sure.
See, for me as a fan, obviously going on shows and media, that's the only thing they ever thrown at us. That is it. That was it, and they can't say it now. So I think people are now sitting up and thinking, what's going on at this football club, whether they don't like it or not, is unbelievable. From top to bottom, it's top notch, and like Paul just mentioned, academy players involved, everything, and we're just living a dream. And like you say, I don't think it's going to end soon. I think we just got to keep on going, keep on improving where we can, and yeah, it's fantastic. This is the best season of my life, and like you say, it's going to look forward to going to a few grounds this year and rubbing it in.
Best season of our lives, best 2 weeks of my life, from winning the Premier League to this moment in Istanbul, best 2 weeks of my life, without a doubt. So that was 6 of our most pivotal games in the season that Manchester City won the treble. We are Premier League champions, we are FA Cup champions, and we are European champions. Hope you enjoyed that, Blues. We certainly did.